Hello everyone. I'm starting a very spontaneous vlog right now. As you can tell, I'm pretty cozy right now because I have a blanket, a dressing gown. Like, it's cold, okay? I have the heater on. And supposedly it's gonna start snowing. And I just decided, you know what? Maybe cozy fantasy is the way to go right now. And see, this is a video I've seen like multiple people do right now. I'm like, oh no, this is not original. But also, I don't care if it's not original. I still have to do some research about what I want to read for cozy fantasy, because I feel like the past like couple of months everyone's been like cozy fantasy, but it's like the same 5 books that people keep reading over and over again. I am obviously going to read Legends and Lattes because Lizzie got that for me for Christmas, so like I will read that in this, but like I want to read some other ones as well. So I think I'll ask on like Twitter and Instagram and see if anyone has any recommendations of some like underrated ones, because the other one like is like the regular society, no, the Society of Irregular Witches. I think that might be it. I have no interest in reading that because from what I can tell about it, it's a romance book that just happens to have magic. And then a lot of the other ones that I recommended are TJ Klune, which I did read House on the Cerulean Sea, and I liked it. But I read that before, like the controversy with that book, so I'm not really sure do I want to read any more books from him, because I don't know. Did he ever really apologize for that? I don't even think. Also, a lot of T. Kingfisher. Yeah, because I've seen a good few people reading Sword Heart, which I do want to read that. I also want to read Paladin's Grace, which is like in the same world as Sword Heart, but I'm not sure is that one really cozy fantasy? I mean, because like, well, there's an assassination attempt in it, so that doesn't necessarily say cozy. But she does have another book that I've been seeing. Like it keeps showing up on my SCRIBD, and I'm like, which is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking or whatever. I'm like, that does intrigue me. And that sounds very cozy. Like even more cozy than with Sword Heart, which again is like kind of a romance that just happens to be set in a fantasy world. Right now I'm thinking of starting A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. And I think I might send Lizzie a message and be like, hey, are you free for a buddy read of Legends and Lattes anytime soon? And then I think the other one I'm kind of thinking of, is Small Miracles, which is an indie fantasy book. And I'll have to see if I can get it anywhere. This was one that is in the top, is it top 8? Top 10? Top 8 for SPFBO, which Cosy has been on about like crazy. It's a competition, not the book. But she has read this book, and she actually gave it a pretty positive rating, especially for like, she was like pretty sure she was gonna like absolutely not like this. And like from what I can see, everyone who's read it so far for Casty's version of SPFBO has like really enjoyed it, and a lot of them didn't expect to enjoy it when they went to it. So like I'm kind of intrigued about it. So the audiobook is actually available on SCRIBD, and it's only 7.5 hours. So like those are 3 books that I'm definitely intrigued, but I think I would like one more. So I'm gonna go on the internet and see what the internet is saying. And then, as I said, I will also go on Twitter and Instagram. Also, 2 more things to say. Number 1, also a lot of cozy fantasy lists say Howl's Moving Castle, which I have read, but I haven't read the sequels. And I'm kind of afraid to read the sequels. But also there's like Diana Wynne Jones wrote so many books, so I could read one of hers because I feel like a lot of her books are cozy. But also I could reread Howl's Moving Castle and then watch the movie again because I kind of want to do that. And then the other thing I was going to mention is also so I mentioned Small Miracles earlier, which is Olivia Ashwater. And she's actually written another book which has been traditionally published, I believe. And is it like Half a Soul? It has a green cover with like scissors. Is it scissors? And I feel like that's been getting a lot of hype for being a cozy fantasy. So hello, I'm all comfy cozy, you know, keeping with the theme. I've started and finished A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher, and I give it 3 stars. And it's weird because like, yeah, I don't really know how I feel. This book follows a 14-year-old girl, and she is a baker. And then one morning she discovers a dead body in the bakery, and then she basically gets accused of the murder, and she has magic, but it is very simple magic. She doesn't have extraordinary gifts. She's just a magical baker. So she gets accused of this murder, and she's like, I literally couldn't, no way I could have done it. And then kind of this whole kind of plot opens up. I think this is my 4th book. That doesn't sound right. 5th? I don't know. I read a couple of T. Kingfisher books at this stage, and all of them take me a while to get into them. Like, it takes me at least halfway through. So, like, the first half, which I read yesterday, I was just, like, so uninterested, to be honest. And I was like, there was nothing wrong with it. It's just, I just didn't really care. And then the last half that I read today, I was so invested. And so that's why I gave it a 3 stars, because, like, that last half, I loved it. It was probably, like, a really high 4-star. But, like, I just didn't care about the first half. And it happens with all of her books. I don't know what it is. It's not super cozy, to be honest, because, I mean, it actually ends up getting quite intense, which is kind of why I started to like it more. By the end, there's, like, a war going on, and, like, it's, like, it's not, I would say, super intense, but, like, there is that, like, sense of, like, urgency. So, it's not, like, you know, super low stakes. Like, there is high stakes in this. So I'm like, is it a cozy fantasy? Like, yes, the magic in it is a cozy, and I think the relationships and all of that is also quite cozy, but at the end of the day, the stakes aren't. Main character Mona, I liked her well enough. She was okay. I really liked Splinter, who was a, I think, 10-year-old boy character, and yeah, he was just very entertaining. And I liked the relationship. Like, I liked the little friendship between the two of them, and I liked her relationship with her family. And I did like some of the discussions in here about how so many adults kind of failed her to the point that she had to be a hero. Because, I mean, a lot of the time we're, like, in, like, middle grade and YA, we're like, where are the parents and all of this? And, like, obviously, I mean, they're far younger readers, so of course readers want to be reading from their age. Older readers just have to suspend their disbelief a lot of the time that, like, where are the parents? But with this one, like, it's actually a discussion of the book of how many adults failed her to the point that she had to take things into her own hands. And I thought that was a really nice discussion to have. It was, like, a really high 3-star. So, like, not a failure, but, like, not the best start. But we'll see. Hello. So, it is now Friday. Actually, I don't even think I told you what day I started this all on, so that's kind of pointless. Yesterday, I updated you because I read A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. Well, I finished it. And then right after that, because Cassidy was doing sprints, I started Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater. And I'm about 50%, I think slightly more than 50% in. And so I was like, I'll give a 50% update. Though I will say I just really wanted to finish it. And so that's why I'm giving you it, like, right now from bed, because I want to read more of it. And the update is, I'm really enjoying this. This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted. So, this book follows a fallen angel, and they still are friendly enough with some of their, you know, brothers and sisters. Well, one particular one. And basically, our main character kind of owes them a debt. And this other angel calls to collect on it. They want our main character to tempt this woman called Holly Harker, whose like sin count is, like, really low, like, overall good person, and the angel just wants her to have a bit of fun. So Gadriel, I think, is the angel's name, and it changes whether he's a he or a she, depending on the day. And yeah, so we basically just follow this angel as they're trying to tempt this character, and it doesn't work out a lot of the time, and it's very entertaining. As I said, I'm really enjoying it. This is what I meant when I wanted cozy fantasy, because it is such low stakes. Like, there's no battles, there's no big fight scenes or anything like that. It's very small and comforting, and it is so funny. Like, I was making the, like, horrible snort laughing sounds. Like, I was like, this is, like, ew. But, like, I couldn't help it. Like, I literally couldn't help it. It was so funny to me. and yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. With a Wizard's Guide, like, I wasn't necessarily afraid for her character or anything like that, but I think automatically when you have like a big battle, the stakes are automatically higher, and so like it automatically made it a lot less cozy for me. Whereas with this one, it is like comical, like it is, you know, when you like nearly like picture like a black and white movie where like the character is kind of just running around making a mess and just like constantly trying to fix it, and that's kind of what our character is doing. Like, pretty early in the book they accidentally basically make her do more good deeds when trying to make her hiss it, and like, so it's just really entertaining that way. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to change my thoughts too much between now and the end. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 4 stars, and yeah, I'm liking the character so much, and I think the one thing I am still looking forward to is I think there's going to be more discussions on grief in the second half, which like could definitely bring down the vibe, but I really enjoyed the small bits that we did see, so I'll update you on how that goes, because that's like a big part of the characters' lives. There's not much of a plot except for, like, as I mentioned, that kind of like comedic, like just like trying and failing and trying again and trying again, which does get a little repetitive, I will say. I've had a good night's sleep, so I'm ready to get back into it and hopefully finish it. Hello, so it is a bit later in the day now, and I did finish Small Miracles this morning, and I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. So not too much more to add on from what I said earlier. You know, the positive feelings continue throughout, and I did overall, it's just a thoroughly good time. Like, it is nothing serious, it is just lighthearted, fun, makes you laugh a couple of times, and sometimes you just need that. I continue to enjoy it throughout. I will say, actually, there is a bit more plot introduced actually pretty soon after I started listening again. So I think I was at about the 56% mark when I was talking to you this morning, so maybe about the 60%, we kind of got introduced to like an actual like plot. Like, obviously we had the plot of, you know, just trying to get this person to sin, but then there was also like the introduction of this kind of like almost a reason behind all of it. I wasn't necessarily actually looking for one, to be honest. Like, I would have been perfectly happy with there not really being any reason except just want this woman to have a bit of fun. But I did enjoy the introduction of that, and I did like how it played out. I think that's kind of like the only major change. The characters were still great. I loved the relationship between them, you know, the aunt and the niece, as well as like the 2 angels, and also between the angel and this woman, and like all of it was really good. I do still wish we got a bit more development of character Holly, her grief about her sister, as well as her mother, because it's kind of implied that her mother might have been like abusive to the 2 of them pretty early on, and that's kind of never touched on again, and that kind of connects to the struggle she has grieving for her sister, is the relationship between her sister, and her mother, and I do wish that we just got a little bit more of that, but I do think also, on the other hand, that might have made it a bit too serious. I did think that like the small bit that we saw of it was like an interesting discussion, but we just didn't get to see more of it, which I would have liked. But even then, not the end of the world. At the end of the day, that relationship was not the focus of the story. You know, the main, most important one is between Holly and the niece, not between Holly and her sister. I continue to enjoy the humor. I do think maybe the first half of the book was slightly more funny, but the second half still definitely had its moments, and definitely something I would recommend if you just want a light, fun audiobook, maybe to break up some heavier reads or anything like that. I definitely think this is one of those, and definitely what I wanted when I thought cozy fantasy. So this was a good recommendation from Mel and Cassidy. I think the 2 of them actually gave it a high 3 star, whereas I gave this a 4 star. So actually, if anything, I actually had a more positive experience than them. So Yes, that worked out well. So far, I feel like this vlog is going pretty good. I don't think cozy fantasy is ever going to be a thing that's like 5 stars for me. Well, not necessarily, okay, because technically Howl's Moving Castle is a 5 stars, and that is also, a lot of people consider that cozy fantasy. Apologies, I had to answer the door. So, as I was saying, I was about to say, like, I don't think cozy fantasy is going to be something that, like, oh, my new favorite thing. Like, I don't think that. Like, I still don't think that, but I was actually about to say, like, I don't think it's going to be like a 5-star thing, which is not true, because a lot of people consider Howl's Moving Castle a cozy fantasy, and I did give that 5 stars. But, like, also, that's like a middle grade. Well, yeah, it is technically a middle grade, but it's like one of those like middle grades that, you know, suits everyone. Where I was going with this point, I think cozy fantasy for me is going to be pretty similar to how I feel about YA. So like a good kind of fun breakup between my heavier chunky fantasies that like I enjoy, you know, 3 or 4 stars usually, with a couple of exceptions that might get like higher than that. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, I am open to be being proved wrong. But so far, you know, the 1 3-star and 1 4-star is kind of fitting in with that theory. Next, I think I'm going to start reading, I think it's Stargazy Pie, and this was suggested to me by Emma. So the ebook of it is available to me on SCRIBD. Also, it's another, I think, indie. My goal was like to read like 5 so, indie or self-published books. So like, I'm killing it. That's what I'm going to read next, because it is Friday. And I don't think it's super long. A lot of cozy fantasies aren't, though. And then I think tomorrow? No, not tomorrow. And so then I'm going to have to wait until Monday to read Legends and Lattes, because number 1, I said I'd buddy read it with Lizzie from Lizzie Reads. And number 2, because I actually left the book up in my granny's. So I don't have it. I don't think it's going to take me all weekend to read Stargazy Pie, but I do have other books that I'm like supposed to be reading / in the middle of. So I'll just read those if I finish Stargazy Pie. So that's the plan. I am now 50% into Stargazy Pie by Victoria Goddard? Can't remember. Mixed feelings. I can't really give you a synopsis of it, because even though I'm 50% in, I still don't really get what the point of the story is. So basically, we have this character, and his family has kind of been disgraced. He has been disgraced, and he has just returned from university, and he's working in a bookshop in his town, and one of his former friends, you know, has come back into his life, and there is this weird pie, and him, his friend, and the owner of the bookshop are all trying to figure out what is up with this pie. Like, it's kind of absurd, but it's supposed to be. And so like that's where it like gets a couple of points, because like it's so ridiculous, but it knows it's ridiculous, and it's just kind of like playing into it. It's kind of sitting at a 3-star, but it definitely has room to move up or down if we kind of actually get somewhere with the story in the second half. So like just on like the cozy fantasy, which is what I'm like reading in this, it's not really giving me what I want, and this is a learning experience for me. You know, I haven't read really any cozy fantasies, so like I'm learning what I do and do not like in cozy fantasies. And this one, it's actually kind of nearly more of a cozy mystery. Like, we haven't gotten a lot of fantasy yet. We've just gotten kind of like hints of it. We've gotten like the first like blatant bit of magic, but it's not a super magical story. So like that kind of fits with a lot of cozy fantasy from what I see. It's not like super strong magic system. That's definitely something that has been common so far. It is actually nearly more cozy mystery than it is cozy fantasy. It's not a super funny book, which I think that's kind of what I want with my cozy fantasy. I want some really lovable characters. I want some humor. I don't really care if there's much plot. I don't want to feel like our characters are like in danger. Yeah, so this one doesn't fit what I personally want in a cozy fantasy. Like, I'm intrigued as to where the story is. I see a lot of potential. That is what I can say. And like, in fairness, this book was like 6 or 7 years ago, and it is like, I'm not sure, I think it's indie published, so you know, maybe not as well edited as some trad published books. I can see some like brilliant thoughts and ideas, but I just don't think the execution is that well. And as I said, this book is like 6 or 7 years old. I think it's, yeah, it was 2016, I think it originally came out. I'm sure she's probably grown a lot as an author. And as I said, I can see like that creativity, that some really unique features in this, but I just don't think it's being very well executed. The magic system has not really been explained at all. Like, we've only gotten our first bit of magic into it, and I was kind of like a bit confused. The writing style doesn't flow very well. The characters, they're okay, nothing special about them. The plot is kind of a bit all over the place. I'm not sure that the author even really had any idea where she was going, and it kind of just feels like she's writing as she's going and trying to figure it out the wrong way, which is maybe a bit harsh. I feel like if, you know, one or two issues kind of maybe get a little better within the second half, it could definitely go up a bit, but right now it is sitting at a 3. I think I realized what one of the problems with the writing style is, which is it's almost all dialogue. Like, it's so much dialogue. So I think that's kind of what's making me kind of like, there's like no breakup of it. So yeah. Hello everyone. So decided to update you again. So I finished Starry Pie actually yesterday at this point. And I ended up giving it a 2-star. Just, yeah. It didn't get worse. Like, I know I was saying that I was thinking that it was going to be a 3-star, but you know the way that like it just like continues on, and while like you don't have any like really major problems with it, it just kind of like starts to like get on your nerves more and more, even though like it's not getting worse. That's kind of what ended up happening. So I gave it a 2 stars in the end. But it is weird because like I am kind of tempted to continue the series, which I usually don't do for 2-star books. So like that's a really strange thing that happened to me. It just, I did really enjoy the ideas in it. I don't really have too much more to add on from what I was saying yesterday. Was it yesterday I updated you and told you? Really good ideas, just not the greatest execution. And as I said, I do think that like, I do think I would like to give maybe a newer book from her a go. I do know there's like 6 or 7 books in this series, and like maybe I'm probably not going to continue the series, but I'm going to see maybe if she has any like newer series or newer standalones, and see kind of like give, you know, a look at the synopsis, because as I said, I thought she really did have some great ideas and some really just really fun and absurd concepts, but just the writing didn't do it for me. The plot was, it was just kind of all over the place, and it just didn't work for me in the end. I have very mixed results so far. And also sorry Emma, because you were the one who recommended that to me. I had a 2, a 3 and a 4, so we have one more book to go, and that is going to be Legends and Lattes. So this is like the book that started it all, because I wanted to read this book, and yet it's the last book I'm reading for this vlog. We're not going to talk about it. Also, I just noticed on the back that it is blurbed by Olivia Atwater, who wrote Small Miracles. So I feel like that bodes well, considering that's my favorite cozy fantasy so far. I'm excited to start this, but also like a little nervous because, you know, some of the books haven't lived up to expectations. I'm once again talking to you from the corner. I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting burnt out on cozy fantasy. It's definitely something that I should not read a lot of in a row. It's way shorter than I thought it would be, because the actual story is actually only like 260 something pages. So yeah, so it's way shorter than I thought it would be, which I don't know why I thought it would be long. I mean, I don't read a lot of hardback, so maybe I'm just like a judge of the hardback size maybe. I'm enjoying it so far. I still think Small Miracles is my favorite. That is a surprise, because like obviously I was expecting this to be my favorite when I went in, because like it is the one I own physically, and I have bought like 3 people this book, including Lizzie. Are we actually buddy reading it, or am I just like, I'm reading it so you can read it or not? I feel like I don't really need to tell you what this book is about, but we follow Viv. She's an orc. She used to be a mercenary, but those days are behind her, and so she moves to this town and she opens up a coffee shop, and she, you know, she's getting staff and she's making friends and she's setting up her business and basically kind of trying to break some of like the cycle she's gotten into. I like it so far. It's definitely sitting between like a high 3-star or a low 4-star. Definitely it's not gonna be a new favorite, I can tell you that much. I like the characters. They're lovable, you know, they're sweet and cute, and I'm enjoying the friendships and all that are being built up. I do like where I think the plot is kind of going. Like, obviously there's not much plot, but I do like where it seems to be going, and like just kind of like her learning new things and I guess trying to unlearn some of like the bad habits she got into and all of that, and trying to like prove herself in all of this. So it's very sweet like that. I don't know, I guess I just thought I would love it more. There's nothing wrong with it. It is pretty similar as to what I thought it would be. It's just, I guess I thought like the characters I would really love, and I would really love the atmosphere, which there isn't really much of. Like, I don't really feel the coziness. Like, it is cozy, but like I don't personally feel cozy. Like, does that make sense? No, probably not. The writing is solid, especially for our first book. I guess my biggest negative, which like, is it really a negative? I mean, it is for me. And I think what I personally want in a cozy fantasy is, I guess I thought there would be a bit more humor in it. And maybe that's because like all three of the cozy fantasies I've read so far in this vlog had humor in them. Like Wizard's Guide, you know, there was a lot of like funny baking things. Like, I'm not a huge baker, but like I know enough that like, you know, I like, you know, got a good chuckle out of some of the stuff in there. Stargazy Pie was the same. It had kind of that level of like absurdity that, you know, was really funny. And then Small Miracles, I just absolutely, that made me laugh ridiculously hard. I guess I just thought that it would be like a little funny because like, I guess a lot of people are like, nobody in the town knows what coffee is. So I guess like maybe expected a little more humor through that of like trying to convince these people to try coffee. Nowhere does it say that it is actually funny. I guess I just through just like people talking about, you know, how, you know, she's trying to start this up and nobody knows what it is and all this, and then also reading the others, I did kind of just assume that there would be like a bit of humor into it. On the back actually someone says, as humorous as it is heartwarming, and I'm like, is it? I might try and finish it, but we'll see. Okay, so I decided to finally wrap this vlog up because it's been going on for a while, and I finished the book like yesterday, and it's like almost 24 hours later and I haven't spoken to you about it. So Legends and Lattes. So again, not too much has changed since my 50% update. In the end, I decided to give it a 3-star. It was like a high 3-star. I did debate giving it a 3.5, but I try not to give 0.5 ratings, and it felt more of a 3 than I did a 4. It definitely was not a bad book. Like, I don't want you to think that I didn't like the book or that I thought it was bad or anything like that. Like, it was a perfectly fine book, and I definitely enjoyed a lot of it. And that's the same with actually A Wizard's Guide. 2 of them were like really solid high 3 stars. Like, I liked these, but I had a couple of issues, / I just didn't really get an emotional connection, or etc, etc. I could see and understand why so many people fell in love with this book, but it just didn't work for me. And I don't 100% know why, to be honest. Like, the characters, like, there was nothing wrong about them. They weren't poorly written. We got some development between the characters. There was like friendship and romance and all of that. And like, I saw it happen and like, I was like, yes, but I didn't ever feel emotionally invested or connected to them. And I think that's a big downfall. Whereas I feel like a lot of people just fall in love with these characters and their friendships and their romance and whatever, and so that obviously really boosts their enjoyment of the book, whereas that's just not the case for me. Almost a feeling of community, like, that definitely sets the atmosphere in here, and it definitely makes it like nice and cozy and comforting, and, you know, people are there to help you and all of that stuff, and it's very sweet. And so like, it definitely did its job of being very sweet and, you know, thoughtful and lighthearted. It definitely did its job. The plot, I mean, I knew going into this there wasn't going to be a very strong plot. I was okay with it. I was okay with, you know, the building of this coffee shop. The, you know, new person would come in, we'd get to know about a little bit about this person, blah 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 blah. But after a while, it just the same thing over and over and over again, and so it got extremely repetitive. And that's, I think, where it went from a 4 to a 3, is just like, it just was the same thing over and over, just like one too many times for me. Similar issue that I had with both of those books, actually, that I found them both quite repetitive. And I think the one thing that like draws this down more than like Small Miracles is like, well, I was just more attached to Small Miracles. Small Miracles made me laugh more, and also there was like a plot point in here that like I just felt like it didn't really go anywhere. I was like, I'm fine with it being plotless, but don't try and kind of like start a plot and then not have it matter. Yes, so a 3-star, but like a decent 3-star. Ranking wise, in 4th place we would have Stargazy Pie, which I gave a 2-star. Then we would have A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, which I gave a 3-star. Then we would have Legends and Lattes, which I gave 3 stars. And then in the top spot is Small Miracles, which I gave a 4 stars. And it's actually, I mean, we're obviously only 1 month into the year, so not much competition, but out of like the 8 books I've read this month, it is currently my favorite book. That's basically what I'm saying. Like, I really enjoyed that book. And I think the audiobook narrator definitely helped. So what have we learned from this experiment, guys? Obviously, I think 4 is way too small of a sample size to make actual conclusions. We can definitely see some trends between them. So number 1, I would say, is I definitely preferred the shorter ones. Stargazy Pie was the longest one, and that definitely went on too long. So, whereas I think Small Miracles was actually the shortest of them, and then followed by Legends and Lattes. And so those were my top 2. So I would say between like the 250 and probably, I think 350 is probably even pushing it. I feel like that is my perfect length of cozy fantasy. We also want lovable characters, but obviously the lovable characters is subjective, because I'm sure a lot of people think the characters in Legends and Lattes are lovable, and I think like objectively, yeah, they are, but I just didn't connect to them. Then number 3, actually, like, let's bump that up to like number 1, is I want humor in my cozy fantasies. I want something that makes me laugh. I want something absurd, which I think actually you find in a lot of these books, in every single one of them, actually, in all 4 of them. There was like something just like absurd and unique, and like, why would anyone think of that? And I loved that aspect of every single one of them. So in Stargazy Pie, it was magical sneezes and manners being like the most important thing about the book. And then in Wizard's Guide, there was just so much like baking jokes and baking magic. Like, it was a little ridiculous. And I mean ridiculous in like the best way. And then Legends and Lattes, obviously nobody knows what coffee is, and so she's trying to explain it. And then in Small Miracles, it's about a fallen angel trying to get someone to sin, and like, that's also like kind of ridiculous. And that was something that I loved about every single one of them, was like the absurdity of the plot. Yeah, so we're like humor, absurdness, that's not a word, lovable characters, short, so 250 to 350, but even 350 is kind of pushing it. And then I think number 5 is audiobooks. I think for our cozy fantasy, I want it to be audiobook. I want it to be something that I can kind of just like sit back and listen to, because again, because A Wizard's Guide and Small Miracles, I listened to both of them, and I think while I enjoyed the story of Legends and Lattes more, and so I gave it a higher rating, like they're both 3 stars, but I gave the 2 of them, I would like put Legends and Lattes above Wizard's Guide. But I would say like the actual like reading experience of Small Miracles and Wizard's Guide the most. So I think those are like the 5 do's I want. And then like, I mean, most of the don'ts are just like the opposite. So like, I don't want really long ones. I don't want a convoluted plot. Absolutely not, which is exactly what happened in Stargazy Pie. Number 3 is I don't want war. I do not. I don't mind there being like a little bit of fighting or anything like that, but I don't think war as like a plot line really makes a very cozy fantasy. The atmosphere of the book may be cozy. You're automatically given higher stakes when something is set in a wartime. So I think that's another no for me. And I think those are like the 3 main no's. So yeah, so am I a cozy fantasy girl? Probably not. But am I a cozy fantasy to occasionally break up the big chunky epic fantasies? I think so. I would be intrigued for any of your recommendations based on like what I've kind of said about what I did and didn't like about these books. I'm probably not going to be reading any for a while. Maybe in a couple months. I don't want to get too burnt out on them. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.